Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Tirusew, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Abate, for inviting me. This is something that is dear to my heart because some of the work I've been doing is on this. So since you asked me what I do, I think it's written there. Typically, I shouldn't say typically, we are a municipal water wholesale supplier, the company that I work. It's the metro area is about 2.5 million people. And on that, my responsibility is to, as a leading manager for the group that looks ahead, multiple scale decision, develop multiple scale decision support tools, including demand forecast, supply, and how much infrastructure we need by when, that kind of things. So today, what I'm going to talk about is about how much water is needed in the Nile Basin, as you see on the title, by 2050. I just want to give a disclaimer here. While myself and other researchers, we did this work for the Nile Basin Initiative. What I say is strictly my opinion, not necessarily representing the Nile Basin Initiative. I just want to mention that. In terms of demand forecast, this is very, very difficult. I don't know, some of you may have been on this, but I have never seen a challenging work than figuring out the demand for water, industrial as well as municipal, because of the things I will discuss later on. It's very challenging. I thought some other fields are difficult, but this is very difficult. The reason that makes it difficult is that even for developed country where I work here in Florida, United States, where we have tremendous amount of data, including the data that gets into customers. We got this. We have all kinds of data that you can imagine. Still, even here, we tend to under or overestimate. And that's the reason I want to show you a couple of examples, let alone in developing country, but also even in developed country with all the data we have, it's still a challenge making demand forecast. It's extremely challenging. And I'll come back later on what we can do about it because of this, because of uncertainty. And especially as we look ahead 20, 30 years from now, it is really very difficult. So to give you, I will start here just for you to appreciate how demand forecast is difficult. In a country like US, we have tremendous amount of data on that. One of the things that actually captured my struggle in all of us, I've been in demand forecast for over a decade, is this one that says forecasting is the art of saying what will happen and then explaining it why it didn't. So this is what you're going to find in demand forecast most of the time, and economic forecast as well. In many places, they will forecast, but we know we are going to be wrong, but you explain it. And some of you may hear news. For example, most of the data for us comes from economic projection. If you hear the news from Wall Street, for example, and they say, okay, next month, employment is X, and end up being, say, maybe 150 employment, and then end up being 300. These guys are wrong by 50%, 100%. But nobody questions about the mismatch between the forecast and the actual value. Rather, the Wall Street will just clap and say, yay, and then the stock market goes on. So that means, well, we were expecting less than that is. The other way around too. But for demand forecast, since most of the data depends on socio-economic forecast coming from these entities, we have to live with that. And there is huge infrastructure dedicated to that in the Nile Basin, not only for infrastructure, but potentially figuring out, what amount each country needs. These are critical, and we need to appreciate the uncertainty and the challenge on this. And today I was going to talk more on that side of the challenge, as well as give you some of overview of what we have done. Okay, so this is an example. This is a city in the West, Seattle, Washington. This is their urban water demand. So you can see what you see on the black is the actual demand. Going back to 1940. So it's sometimes good to go back, see, 30 years, 50 years, 70 years. That's where the development will take us. This is the actual demand. And all the time, what you see is the forecast that what they thought will be in the future. So you can see, going back from 1965, they were forecasting the demand will go this way. And then the other one, they forecast the demand will go this way, going this way. So it's just simply shooting up, basically, the forecast. At the end, I guess they just get tired and they just made a straight line here. So the message here is that even in a place like here, we have tremendous amount of data. Forecasting demand is really a challenge. I can show you as the same thing with Washington, D.C. Actual observation is here, for example. Population is growing like that. You can see even with population growth, the demand is not showing that much, and I will discuss that. That's a different thing when we look at it in the developing countries like ours. But the message here is that most of them, if you look 20 years, 30 years ahead, forecasting demand is pretty much, I don't know how they call it, a crystal ball type. How do we manage that? I will come back to that, using a range of scenarios, updating the demand forecast frequently, and that kind of things to understand the challenge of demand forecast. Yes. So, for example, if you go back and see for us, there are different factors impacting the municipal water use, for example. The number one is socio-economic factor, as you can imagine.
Non, je suis sur Zoom, mais j'ai pas envie de me moquer. Reste là-bas, Gabriel, il y a une caméra. Tu fais le tour.
Yeah, please mute yourselves, while the speaker is on. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I know this thing. So
the number one driver for demand water uses, as you can imagine, is socioeconomic factors, specifically income. So as people have more disposable income, and not only disposable, their income overall, because water is a necessity, they tend to use more water. That's clear. Price of water, also the second most we found. We have done a lot of research, not just in the developed country, but developing country. Price of water controls as well. What is the person per household? How fast the population is growing? Even types of connections. In many places, you may have what we call a master meter. That could be for few houses, and I think this is typical in many developing countries, that people they share, or versus you have individual or piped in, as we call. So how it is not what the people they want, but because the connection is not there, they are limited by how much water they use. Now, some approach, they look at a portion of the society. They have neighborhood piping, even attract water coming in. The challenge is, okay, we know this today, 2023, 2022, by 2050, how many of the people will still be on this master meter type, a neighborhood water type, versus piped in? A typical person who has at home. It could be a condo, it could be something that gets into them. So those are the things that will impact significantly. Obviously, weather is there too, rainfall and temperature. You have more rainfall areas. Some of the countries, they have rainfall. So for outdoor irrigation, the water use is much lesser. Temperature, so these weather impact as well as you look at across the Nile Basin. Industrial water use, another challenging one, depends on the type of manufacturing, mining, construction, power generation for coolings. By the way, power generation for cooling takes significant amount of water. So most people, they may not realize that. In fact, here we have some power generation, coal plants as well. They have to locate it close to the ocean. So they would use that water for cooling, and then we actually collocate with them to use our desalination. So how much of this water come back and used, that's another thing. So there are many industrial use too. Now the challenge comes in, what is the current consumption? So you always have to figure out your baseline and how that country, that city is going to grow into the 2050, given not the residential or urban water, but also the industrial. So that's a challenge too, okay? Non-residential sectors, so typically what we do is, even in a big city, forget about now for the industrial, but commercial type is like car washing centers. And even sometimes in the cities, you have these beer factories and some other cities too. So there are these water consumption that are not really residential. So a school, firefighting, all other things, we call them non-residential, to just make a little bit different from the residential, which is a people's consumption as well. Type of industry, price of water, obviously, population or employment. Sometimes if you have this small industry factory, it could be places you have a small industry factories, employment, they need water there. There is a way to look at it beyond the typical per capita, but it is a function of the size and the type of that industry as well. I know many African countries as well, they are looking at, for example, industrial parks or something like that. Weather obviously is a huge one. And then existence of alternative water use, and I will come back to this. So sometimes you may have a local source which offset the demand. In that case, the demand itself may be inflated or not, depending on whether there is an existence of alternative water to use. So what do we mean by the alternative? Will be, you know, people using rainwater harvesting or shallow groundwater to offset if they are close to the river. In fact, some manufacturers, they locate close to a river where they use that as well. So it doesn't show up as a industrial and municipal water as well.
Are you there? We can't hear you, Dr. Tirusew. I think he froze. It froze on him. He didn't freeze, but the system, I think. Tirusew, we can't hear you. Okay.